Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Blockchain Buzz. I am Jake Gagain, joined by one of the OGs in the NFT space, one of my good buddies, Franalations. Fran, how are we doing?
What's good? What's good? Thanks for having me on. Doing great. Excited to come chill and talk with you about all things NFT.
I can't wait because since we've met, which was probably close to 2 years ago, you've been my go-to source for NFTs. You're the reason that I have my profile picture of Mutant Ape Yacht Club. Remember when I called you? I was at In-N-Out and I was like, yo, I'm going to pull a trigger on this one. I ended up pulling another one. I think that was around a 6 to 8 ETH floor. Obviously, Mutants went all the way up to a 40 ETH floor. So I owe you a huge thank you. Here's the thank you, a public thank you. So thank you for that. But your story is pretty interesting because you found Bored Ape Yacht Club and NFTs very, very early. Let's just start. Have you always been a collector in the NFT space or a collector in general?
Yeah, lifelong collector. You know, as a kid, Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, Beanie Babies, and so on. And as I got older, Pokemon, which actually stuck with me my whole life. You know, sealed booster boxes, cracking packs. Near where I live, there's a place called Frankenstein's. It's basically like a collector's trade show that happens twice a week, every Wednesday and Saturday. So, you know, being a collector, that's a collector's dream. Anything from Disney pins to baseball cards to Barbies. If you think there's a collector for it, it's probably sold there. And I pretty much grew up there. One of my first jobs was working there at one of the booths and kind of, you know, they'd sell the Yu-Gi-Oh cards, but the vendors didn't know what they did. So I kind of explained how you make a deck and stuff like this. So always been a collector. As I got older, sneakers was the thing that took over that collecting bug for me. And, you know, Nike SB, I was very early to doing sneaker YouTube videos in 2008 before it was a thing. Now there's a whole industry around it. You know, if you want to market a product, you seed the influencers to get the word out there. And yeah, so I was very early to that. And from there, actually started my own footwear brand. We sold sandals, did that for 4 or 5 years before I got into crypto. I got into crypto in 2017 and I never left. You know, went through that whole bear market. I got into crypto 2 weeks before it topped out and went through the whole bear market consistently buying and accumulating. And so when NFTs came around, you know, I had the liquid to jump in. And now that we're in the NFT bear market and crypto bear market, you know, I've been through it once before. So I'm ready to hold these JPEGs all the way through it.
I love that. That's a bullish statement right there. So what was your initial reaction? You've been a collector all your life, where there was sneakers, Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh, Ninja Turtles. What was your reaction when you saw your first NFT, and what was the NFT that you saw?
So when I got really heavy into Bitcoin and ETH in 2017, just like anything I get into, I super dive in, and all the documentaries and stuff I was watching, at least 2 minutes would talk about NFTs. And it's usually showing clips of like an auction of crypto kitties or something like this. And it kind of piqued my interest, but there was no big name brands there to really show that it was solidified or anything like this. And Vivi was my entry point. The same guy, he goes by Sneak Geeks, the same guy who I saw doing Jordan reviews in 2008, and actually who I saw mining Bitcoin in 2013, and I faded Bitcoin back then. He had posted the rare Harley Quinn that he had just sniped for retail when that released. And I was like, all right, now the name brands are in. You know, Top Shot was already popping off, but I've never been into sports or anything like that. I understand Powerpuff Girls. I understand, you know, Dexter's Laboratory and Superman and all these things. So Vivi piqued my interest, and you know, I jumped right in and started doing videos there the first couple of days when stuff was still in the shop. And so yeah, that was really my entry point into NFTs, seeing that the brands were coming into the space and kind of making it a permanent thing in my mind. And actually, one of the first things I did is I've been collecting video games since I was a kid. Same old packaging from back then. In some cases, buying sealed packaging. I sold off my complete video game collection to go all into NFTs because to me, the idea of interoperability is like the next phase of gaming. And so, yeah, NFTs at that point, I was locked in.
That's funny because we both found NFTs around the same time. Vivi was my entry point. That's kind of how we found each other. I remember connecting back in the Vivi days. They really had all the hype. You know, Vivi, it was such a wild community. There was so much speculation about Disney and Pokemon and Star Wars. And all these major brands, and they really did control the licensing. And around that time, I remember, I believe you sent me a message too, which is hard to look back on, but I remember you, whether it was in a live stream or us talking on Twitter, you sent me a message about Bored Ape Yacht Clubs. And I remember you had like 4 of them, you were posting them, I thought they looked cool, and I remember thinking, I'm not going to pay $600 for a monkey profile picture back then, because I saw yours and I was like, I faded it so hard. And it's one of the hardest things to live with, but you can't live them all. You got to learn from your mistakes. How did you find Bored Ape Yacht Club? Because you were one of the earlier investors, and I think they actually reached out to you before they even went public.
Yeah, so they didn't actually reach out to me or anything like this, but they did follow my account. I was already, very much in the, Twitter NFT space and stuff like this. So I got followed by them, and I remember going to the page and looking at it. I was like, these are okay. Didn't really think too much of it, and didn't mint them. Instead, what I minted was 8 me bits at 2 ETH each, rather than apes at
Wow.
0.08. So
Whew.
the potential there, you say you always look back and you're going to think about that. I'm always going to look back and think of, I could have literally had hundreds of these things. And
Oh man.
usually when I jump into something, I go in pretty hardcore. So, it is what it is. I did end up, the day after Meebits, I ended up picking up one. On Twitter, everyone had their profile pics as Bored Apes. And it just seemed like, even if I wasn't particularly feeling them at the time, the community was. And so for that reason, I wanted to grab one for at least the record to have in the collection.
Nice. So you grabbed one. That led to 2. What was the most Bored Apes that you owned at a single time?
The most Bored Apes I had at a single time was 2. The most Mutants I had was like 9 or 10, I think, at one point. Yeah. So,
wow, so you went in pretty hard on that aspect. And well, before we get in, because I think one of the things that we want to talk about too is the SEC lawsuit, because I think there's a lot of confusion around Twitter. So we'll touch on that, but I want to hear your whole journey with the Bored Ape. So I remember seeing on Twitter, you had the pink-haired ape. You had that as your profile picture for a while. Those are pretty rare. You ended up selling it. And I remember seeing like people on Twitter freaking out, like Franalations sold his NFT, sold his Bored Ape. And then you end up coming back in and buying a nicer one or a cooler one, I'm sure you would say. But what was your journey? You found them super early, around an ETH or under an ETH. You held it all the way to, I think the all-time high was around 140 ETH. Like, kind of walk us through your Bored Ape journey as you see it.
Yeah, it's been quite the ride, So even before the Bored Apes, well, not before, but so basically, a little bit before NFTs, I had an original sealed box of the original base set of Pokemon, and I had that since childhood. So I paid $60 for it, and I sold it to a friend. He's a sneaker designer and he owns shops. His name's Sean, and he owns Round 2. And this was right before COVID. I had sold him my original booster box for $4,000. It was market price.
Wow.
COVID happened. A couple months later, it was $16,000. Then it was $36,000. Then it was $100,000. And then it got close to 200,000. So I had seen this very rapid trajectory of collectibles. And my thesis was anything that goes digital usually has a higher market cap faster. And so I had seen this acceleration already. And so I, with the Bored Apes, I didn't have that thesis right away. I grabbed one, I liked it, but where I had the thesis was with CryptoPunks. And so I saw it at 36,000, and I had already accumulated a lot of Bitcoin. And so I decided to make the move from Bitcoin to NFTs. That was my call at that point. I grabbed a CryptoPunk, and my target was 100,000, and I thought I'd reach it in a year, and it reached it in 2 months.
Wow.
So that flip is what got me into, at this point, Bored Apes had picked up, and, I was pretty triggered because I had one early on. I paid 0.4 for it, and I ended up selling it a month later for 1.4. And after that, the day later, they announced the dogs, and it started running from there because the dogs were a free airdrop. And so really, I didn't jump back in until 7 ETH, and I was able to, do that because of the sale of the CryptoPunk, and I was easily able to jump back in, actually grabbed a rare ape as well at that point in time. And so, yeah, it's been a wild ride. One of the theses I did have with the apes wasn't as much on the NFT side as much as the IP rights. And so I had already, started my own footwear brand at one point, and very much into sneaker YouTube and collectibles and such. So I had these connections with these brands, and the idea of a Bored Ape being like a Pikachu or a Mickey Mouse that you own the rights to is really the thesis I had, and wanting to monetize in that way. And so I reached out to the brands, and as it is, they didn't know what Bitcoin or Ethereum was, let alone these JPEG monkeys. So it was very hard to get them to understand what I was talking about. And so it was actually a few months later where a lot of these brands started reaching out, because people like Justin Bieber started picking up apes, and now they remembered that I had mentioned it to them. And so it was at that point I was able to get a lot of these collaborations going. I was able to use the IP rights on sneakers and clothing and food, and so many other aspects, used as logos for conventions. And so I was able to use those IP rights for multiple projects over the past year, and still have more in the pipeline as well. And so, yeah, that was the exciting thing to me, beyond any type of speculation of will these Bored Apes be worth something more later on. I thought it could be a business that that I can start. So yeah.
And you started it, and I'm sure it was profitable and still going. And also, we saw Bored and Hungry here in Long Beach. I haven't yet tried it. It's only 30 or 40 minutes away. I need to try it. I think I saw in your stories. Did you actually go visit it?
I did, and actually, the other thing about that is I actually met with that team in December, and I explained to them the whole thing about the IP rights and kind of
Wow.
walked them through that. And so, yeah, very, very much to see them go from, I think that talk was in December on a rainy day, to April, I think is when it opened. They moved very quickly with that, and I was very excited to see all of that play out, and to at least have a little part of involvement in that.
Yeah, I think you touch a lot of people. I think that's what one of the cool things about you is, like, you share your wisdom, even coming on this show. And, even when I called you about a Mutant Ape Yacht Club, sharing your wisdom, and you were telling me, the reasons to buy it, right? Because you're like, hey, I think that you're probably going to get other side land maybe with it in an airdrop. That's what you said. You were talking about the ape coin before the alpha even came out. So shout out to you for that. Big ups to you for that. And I think the founder of Bored and Hungry, he actually owns a bunch of different restaurants and chains here in Southern California. I've eaten at a lot throughout my time. But I want to talk about the thing. You mentioned, buying it at 0.4, selling at 1.4, buying 2 ETH me bits at the time and what it could have been. I think as investors, we always have that, I don't want to say it's FOMO, fear of missing out, but almost like the regret of selling too early, or, not holding long enough, or maybe not putting enough in. It's just the natural ebbs and flow. But I mean, it sounds like Bored Ape Yacht Club has been a purchase, an investment, even with the IP, something, I'm sure the community as well, that's changed your life forever.
100%. I've met amazing people throughout the way, throughout the journey. Whether it's talking with Snoop and his team and his son, meeting them, going out there to give that whole same spiel of how I feel like owning a Bored Ape is the same thing as being offered the rights to a Pikachu or Mickey Mouse early on. People might not understand the concepts right now, and that's kind of the advantage we have being early adopters to this stuff is, if people really understood it, and these brands are going to build out the way I think they are over the next 5-10 years, it's really an opportunity worth having to own it, because you never know whether it's Netflix or whoever might want to use that that character. They're going to have to come to you rather than Yuga Labs, and that changes everything.
So what was it with Bored Ape that allowed it to have the major success, right? There's a few blue chips that are doing well and will still do well and hold that ETH value, the floor value. What do you think it was for Bored Ape Yacht Club? Was it timing? Was it a perfect storm? Was it the IP? Was it a mixture, the community? Was it everything? What do you think the main catalysts were for Bored Ape Yacht Club that turned Bored Ape Yacht Club and Yuga Labs into what it is today?
I really do think it was a perfect storm, but above everything, those IP rights, it's almost like having a brand with 10,000 employees, because you have 10,000 people out there ready to go promote. Like I was talking to you about it, explaining to you or anyone else. It's really like, it hadn't really been done before. At that time, it was completely brand new. And it's the reason why a lot of projects started. They saw Bored Apes and like, oh, they basically want to copy that. And, it's timing. It was the way the characters look. It was the traits. It was a lot of things, but I do think the IP rights play a huge aspect to it, because the idea that I've even as last night I saw a Frontier commercial and they were talking about the metaverse, and in the kids' room there's a picture of a Bored Ape. You know what I mean? Like it's something different, and so there has been a lot of controversy. There has been a lot of ups and downs, but in general, I do think it has staying power, and we haven't even seen like the P2E games. That I think they have multiple games they're working on. Other side is kind of the metaverse, but they actually have other games coming, and so there is a lot of ways that I can see this picking up with time. So yeah.
Yep, I own 2 mutants, a dog, some land in the other side metaverse, and a lot of ApeCoin, and all I'm doing is holding. Just
Yeah.
because it's like we're so early, right? It's like it's yes, everything is down, but it's also a bear market. And I think when the bull market picks back up, the number one NFT that will pick back up, and probably 3, 4, and 5 behind it are the ones that I just mentioned. Now, I also want to get your opinion. You're obviously pretty connected in the Bored Ape community. You have some intel into what's going on. We saw recently, I think it was last week, that the SEC opened an investigation into Yuga Labs. A lot of people on Twitter were freaking out. They're thinking it's going to be the next Ripple, where they're going to do a 2-year, 3-year long investigation. The price is going to go down. You can't trade Bored Ape Yacht Club NFTs in America. What's the latest that you know regarding this investigation, I guess we can call it, that was opened by the SEC into Yuga Labs?
Yeah, so I do want to say I'm still holding all my Ripple. So definitely, when I saw that headline, the headline definitely startled me. I was like, all right, this is probably a worst case scenario, but I'm still going to be holding it just like I'm holding my Ripple. But as I read into it more, really what it was saying is more so not that they're investigating Yuga for any wrongdoings. More so, when you think about it, I mean, if you were to ask your parents or your aunts or your uncles or your next door neighbor or your friends what they think of NFTs, they're not even gonna know what they are. And the same thing goes for anyone who's trying to regulate the space. They have no clue what's going on. What do you mean a monkey picture sold for $1 million? Like, it makes no sense. So reaching out to the number one brand, Yuga Labs, and really being hands-on in that way and learning and figuring out exactly what's going on makes the most sense. And so even today there was a interview. I don't remember the podcast, but Gordon Goner had retweeted it and I listened in. It was about an hour long, and they were talking about this exact topic, and they pretty much went over the same thing that I was thinking, which is there needs to be an understanding of the space, and they're going to do whatever it takes to explain it to regulators, as well as hopefully help out other brands in the space so that they're within regulations and everything like this too. So I really just think it's more of a touching base type of thing. I even recently saw the Coinbase documentary, and same thing. Coinbase has been around since I think it was 2010, and they've been very much hands-on with any lawmakers or anything like this to explain these things. And I think it's the same thing with this brand new space, NFTs. So yeah.
Amazing. And is that Coinbase documentary out? Is it on Netflix, or where can we watch it? Because I saw
Yeah,
the ad for it.
it was on Amazon. I think you had to buy it or rent it. But yeah, it's definitely worth watching. Watched it, I think, the day or so after it came out. So yeah.
No problem. Well, I'm going to watch that tonight. But back to the SEC thing. So it sounds like they just really want some help. They're like, hey, we're going to go to the top company, right? It's like going to Elon Musk for information on electric cars, or SpaceX. It's like, hey, you guys are the best. You have the most, the highest valuation. You have the biggest community. Like, let us learn from you, right? Like, can you help us out, because we want to learn NFTs, because they are confusing. And it is pretty wild that you get a 4 billion valuation for some JPEG monkey pictures and some land in the metaverse. Obviously, we know it's a lot more than that, but from an outsider looking in, that's exactly what it is.
Right. Yeah. And they might even have a smaller explanation than you just gave on it, as far as their understanding. So yeah, it is a lot to grasp. And I really think most of the people have no clue exactly what's going on here, especially the lawmakers.
Exactly. Especially the lawmakers. We heard how they even questioned Mark Zuckerberg back in the day, and his famous response was like, Senator, we sell ads. That's how we make money. And he's like, so yeah, I think that they're a little bit behind with the internet, and especially with NFTs, because it's so new, but it is so new. So where do we see this thing going, Fran? I mean, obviously a lot of NFTs are down. The blue chips are holding up, kind of similar to a lot of the crypto side of things, right? With community tokens, and there's still some good ones like Shiba Inu and Doge are up there, but most are kind of down. Where do we see this thing going? How are you feeling as an investor right now on October 20th, 2022? And where do you see the future of NFTs going moving forward?
Yeah, so I look back to the last cycle to give my stance on this. I got in very late in that cycle, 2 weeks before the top, and I continued to buy every month. Um, um, no matter if price was up or down, I was buying, preferably when it was down, so I can get a lower price. And I continued to do that for 2 years. And then COVID happened, and Bitcoin crashed to, I think it was like 3,800 or something like this.
Yeah.
And I literally sat there. I was like, everyone was right. I'm a crazy person. What was I thinking buying this shit for 2 years? Like, I'm insane. And I almost did sell. Like that would have been the worst case scenario, is selling all those years worth of accruing Bitcoin and ETH. I didn't do it, luckily, and we saw what happened from there. It was very, very profitable moving forward. And just because that happened with crypto doesn't mean it's going to happen with NFTs. But I strongly believe it will. Anyone who's saying NFTs are dead, people said crypto was dead each of the past cycles, and to me, it's almost like saying an artist painted on a canvas and prices went down, and they're like, "See, art is dead." Like, you
Yeah.
can't let it's already the Pandora's box that's been open, and people are gonna feel an emotional tie to these JPEGs, whether it's because it's their PFP or they just like the way it looks or whatever it may be. That's beyond any of the utility, and so I don't see a world where NFTs are gone. I do think markets are going to go up and down for the foreseeable future, no matter what. And so, yeah, I'm ready to just ride this bear market out. I've been accruing here and there. My main thing that I've been focusing on at this point is like ApeCoin, accruing more of that for staking and everything like this. But as far as NFTs go, I made a buy last night even. So yeah, I'm always buying and I'm always adding to the collection.
I like that. And let's talk about ApeCoin because it's part of the Bored Ape Yacht Club ecosystem. What's the latest with staking? I haven't been following this. Staking coming out now? Is it coming out later? Do we know what the percentage or APY is going to look like?
Yeah, I heard that there's a recent pushback on the timing. I think they said a month or so. We'll see if it's actually a month or if it's longer. Yeah, I don't know any of the exact details. I know that having the ape is like the highest, multiplier to
Yep.
staking. You don't have to have an NFT to stake it, to my understanding, but obviously to get those multipliers, the ape is the most. The ape and the dog, and then there's the mutant and the dog, and so on. So the different tiers for that multiplier, and yeah, I'm expecting to see a full out ecosystem with other side. Coming from World of Warcraft, playing that for half of my life at this point. There's economies around these assets. People trade these swords and pets and mounts for well over what they paid for them. Specifically, I can remember a pet that was $60 in 2004, which trades for about $25,000 now. And so
Wow.
that's something that you just have the license to use. You don't even actually own that digital asset. And so it's not a matter of like if this will happen. It will happen. It's just a matter of when. And I think these assets and these games will hold value. And it looks like ApeCoin is going to be the avenue in which people are using to trade these assets. So with that alone, I'm definitely bullish on ApeCoin long term.
Me too. I called it. I said, in our lifetime, and I know we're going to live for a while, Fran.
Yeah.
I said, in our lifetime, we're going to see $100 ApeCoin.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
it's possible. People call me crazy.
No. You can easily say that within the next 10 years. And so I agree. Will it happen sooner than that? Sure, maybe. I'm not sure. But my goal is to just keep accruing it. I've really been focused on Bitcoin and Ethereum previously, and I still am. But ApeCoin is definitely up there on that list for me.
Yeah, and it's at a pretty good price in my personal opinion. We saw, I think it was like $25 is what it was at right before the other side land release. Now at like $3, $4, $5 it's sitting at. So a good purchase. Now you've been one of my go-to sources, and you might not like hearing it, but it's like, hey, if Fran buys it, I usually try to grab a couple, right? Because you're in the know when it comes to these NFTs. What's your process? What is your process when you're evaluating NFTs? Do you look at the founders? Do you look at the community? Do you look at the artwork? Like what's Franalations' process when a new NFT pops up on your computer screen?
The first year, it was strictly the art. I didn't care about roadmaps. I still, for the most part, don't care about roadmaps. Anyone can claim to do anything. Are they going to deliver or not? I don't know, and I honestly don't care. My thought process is if the art is a high enough quality and a high enough standard, it's probably a team that wants to be there long term. And that was kind of the way I was initially looking at it, and I wasn't looking at any other metrics. Now, with a year and a half's worth of trading, I definitely look to Twitter, and I'm not only looking at who's purchasing, I'm looking at how many and why and what they've done previously with their holdings, right? So there's certain people that still hold 20, 30 apes, and they're not going to let those things go. And they might have let go of one or two to take some profits or whatever, but they're still mainly holding those bags. And so those type of traders, if they're jumping into a project, I'm probably going to want to look at it and take another look as well. And so that's a big part of it. For the longest time, I wasn't really using any like software or anything like that. I was literally just on OpenSeas and just kind of looking at, the analytics there or whatever. And so the past 4 or 5 months, I've been using like stuff like NFT Nerds and stuff like this to get a lot more data, to the second. If someone is processing a transaction on an NFT that I might want, you can click the button on there and it'll speed it up so that you're is processing faster than theirs.
Wow.
And you'll see how many are. So I am using tools now, which I wasn't using previously and stuff like that. And I started using that around the time that I got into rare pepes because there's so much hype around that. And so if I was sniping something, I really wanted to see who was also sniping it and stuff like that. So yeah.
Nice, man. Well, that's it's cool. I didn't know those tools existed, but it's like look, it's your field, it's your profession. You need to be the best at it. You need to have every advantage as possible. I think that's what every professional does. Baseball players, soccer players, football players, even traders, right? You especially in the stock market, like you try to use every tool that you can in order to be the best. So I've been seeing you tweet, obviously the rare pepes. That was a great call by you. You called it super early, went insane, right?
0.02. And I
That's
think it ran up
insane.
1.4 ETH or something like that.
That is wild. Yeah, that was probably one of your best calls, and it wasn't a Bored Ape Yacht Club call yet of 0.2 to 150, but it's like that's a lot of people still made a lot of money. I know I did. I got in. I got some friends in when you called it, so we appreciate that. You've been calling a new one. What is Ranga? I've been seeing you tweet about Ranga. What is Ranga?
Yeah, so the first way that I found out about Ranga was actually through a 10KTF tweet. They had tweeted out, for anyone who doesn't know what 10KTF is, I believe Beeple is involved with it. You basically use your Bored Apes or other blue chip projects to craft this gear and this armor to use in their questing games and stuff like this. So they had a tweet for one of their armors, their Kevlar vest, and it had a rare Ranga on it.
Wow.
That was my first way of finding out about it. I was like, okay, well, 10KTF tweeted it. Let me grab one. At the time, it was the black box, which is basically the mint pass for it. I grabbed it at 0.4. And then I thought about it. I was like, why am I only grabbing one of these? Like, this seems like important. So I grabbed 3. I revealed them, got some cool pulls, did some flips. And like I was saying about that whole Twitter thing, the people that were tweeting about it and accruing more and buying more, they were people that know what they're doing and have known what they're doing for previous trades and stuff. So I really started digging into it more, and a lot of things caught my attention about it. From the mint pass to the fact that the mint pass actually has different tiers. There's rarities, so you can kind of have an idea rather than just the regular black box. There might be one that has like a samurai sword, so you know you're going to get a samurai out of it, but it might not be like the most rare samurai and stuff like this. So this is already a unique thing that I had not seen from any other project. And then on top of that, just kind of we're used to like the left facing and the right facing. This is more of a straightforward facing. So that was slightly unique. It had the 11 different archetypes, almost making it 11 different projects in one,
Wow.
which made it very fun. There's actually some traits that are exclusive to certain archetypes, but in very rare cases, they blend over to other things. So there was just a lot of things that were done as a first that were really exciting. And then above all, the art spoke to me. The art was fun. I've been a lifelong gamer. I have a Game Boy Color and a Super Nintendo controller tattooed on me. And
Nice.
there's like a trait that has like the controllers around the vest and stuff like this. So a lot of things spoke to me really early. And I just really had this feeling that this would be something big. And so far, it's popped off a bit. It's cooled off now and stuff like this. The owner, or the artist, Dirty Robot, actually just made a pretty like mysterious tweet a few hours ago. So maybe there's an announcement coming soon or something like this. So that was pretty exciting. But yeah, I've just been enjoying collecting and trading those. I have 11 currently, and trying to accrue more as time goes on. So yeah.
Very nice, man. Yeah, I think it's exciting, and we like those tweets. And this is going to be airing in 2 days from now, so maybe that message is already out, and maybe the alpha was shared here live on the Blockchain Buzz, hosted by G Media. So it sounds like to me and everybody that's watching that you're still bullish on NFTs, you're still stacking your NFTs, and you're still bullish on crypto long term. Have you felt the people disappear? Like the people disappear from November 2021 to where we're at right now in October?
Oh yeah, 100%. But it hasn't bothered me. Even though I was buying crypto in the last cycle, in the beginning I was watching the YouTube videos still, but then the YouTube videos were like, oh, it's about to moon tomorrow, and that never happened. So I stopped watching those, but I was still very much buying. This space is very different because you have the community aspect and everything like that with each of these projects, but really what I've been occupying my time with is these P2E games right now that are currently out. The way I see it is a lot of the early crypto coins and stuff, you can get them for fractions of a cent, a couple cents and stuff like this. And And right now, by playing those games, you're earning those coins. It could be nothing, it could be something, and I enjoy playing games anyway. So currently, I've been jumping into communities, playing those games, earning their coins, earning their tokens. That the communities that I believe will be around and that I believe will be lasting, because you never know how those coins will affect the next cycle, and that's kind of what I've been focusing on at this point, is the coins, whether it's Ape Coin or Milk or any of these other gaming coins, and just kind of seeing where that goes. It's more of a hunch than like, do I really think it'll be the next big thing? I honestly don't know, but I think it's an interesting bet to take. So that's where I've been focusing my attention on.
I agree. And imagine if it is. Imagine if it is, and you were playing games and you made an extra 10, 20, 30, $100,000 from playing games in the bear market. You'd look back and be like, wow, I'm so glad I made that decision. If not, you're doing something you love anyway. So it's a win-win the way that I look at it. Final question to you. You've been through, this is your second bear market that you've been through. Mm-hmm. You had the lows of the lows of 2017 and into 2020. You had the highs of the highs of 2021. And now some would say pretty lows of 2022. What would you say the one main lesson, or two, whatever you want to say, that you learned through these bear markets, experiencing lows, the highs, and back where we're at today? What are some of the main lessons you've learned?
Yeah, so one thing I want to say before what I've learned is, even though we've been trading sideways for a while, I honestly think the bear market is not close to being over, and I think we're going to go down another leg. So I want to say that first and foremost. You should only be putting in as much as you can afford to lose. And I had always heard that sentiment from all the YouTubers and stuff, but having gone through the cycles and experiencing it, it's 100% like a great starting point as far as information goes. The other important thing is to actually take profits. 2017, I didn't take any profits. I just saw it go up and then it went down, and I held those bags. Knowing that, I was able to, as Bitcoin was running up this time, take decent amount of profit from there, and then getting into NFTs and making those flips, take profit out of that. And so, yeah, I would say those are the biggest things. Is it's really exciting as it's going up, and you want to get more gains out of it, but at the end of the day, you don't know where that top is going to be. So where you feel comfortable, reminding yourself, you need to take some profits. I definitely recommend doing that. And it's much harder to do in practice, because like I said, you want to say like, oh, is it going to double again next week? And, I don't have a specific dollar amount or anything like that to tell someone, but once you start seeing some significant profits, it's probably worth taking it. Even with my initial trade of Bored Apes, I had no clue that Bored Apes was going to be what it was going to be. It 3x, I sold. And so that was the wrong move in the long term, but in 90% of those cases, it's not going to be the wrong move. And if something 3x's, it's probably a good time to sell.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Exactly. My saying here is green is green, and I always try to preach to take profits, and it's tough. It's reverse psychology. When everything's going down, like now, nobody wants to buy. Everybody's left the space, but when everything's going up, you think that Bitcoin's going to keep going to 75, 80,000, 100,000, and look where we're at today, right? So take profits. Don't be so emotionally attached to these investments, although it's tough, especially in the NFT space, because you fall in love with these profile pictures and communities. And honestly, I think that this is the best time to be in the space, whether it's accumulating crypto or accumulating NFTs. Like you said, we could go lower. I think Bitcoin's at 19,000 a day. We could go lower. Some people think the bottom's in. Really, no one really knows. That's the crazy thing about this. There's so many other factors in the world that's happening today to determine what goes on, right? There's a lot of different things that are happening. So we shall see, but that is the episode today. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Franalations. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Franalations23, one of the most reputable guys in the NFT and crypto space, and one of my good friends who's put me on a lot of great plays. So I appreciate you being the second guest on Blockchain Buzz, hosted by Gokhshtein Media. Make sure to smash that like button if you guys enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to Gokhshtein Media's YouTube channel. And as I mentioned, follow our guy, Franalations23, on Twitter. Fran, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. We'll see you guys next week on Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Peace out, everybody.